Some new developments on the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. In a major development, Poland has agreed to provide Ukraine with its MiG-29 fighter jets. The fighter jets will be given to Ukraine through the US. This move could lead to serious escalation. Secondly, anti war protests in Russia continue. Thousands have been arrested in Russia due to these anti war protests. Now we have numbers. How many have been arrested in Russia so far? Thirdly, a video clip from Kherson where a Russian jet was shot down by Ukrainian air defense system. Two parachutes can be seen. Pilots jumped out of this plane. And lastly, foreign fighters will now fight on both sides. Russia is also recruiting foreign fighters. We know that Ukraine is building an international battalion. From across the world, fighters are registering to arrive in Ukraine. Same is happening on the other side. Russia is recruiting as well. From where foreign fighters will come to fight in support of Russian forces. Firstly, viewers, in a major intervention or an escalation, Poland has agreed to hand over its MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine through the US. We know that the US has been in talks with Poland. US wants Poland to hand over its Russian MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine in return for the delivery of US F-16 fighter jets to Poland. Ukrainian pilots know how to fly MiG-29 Russian fighter jets. They cannot fly F-16 of the US. That is why US wants Poland to give its MiG-29 to Ukraine in return for US F-16 given to Poland. Poland shares a border with Ukraine. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians have crossed into Poland from Ukraine. Poland is member of NATO as well, viewers. Ukraine wanted to be member of NATO and it led to this war. But Poland is a member of NATO. Any attack on Poland would be an attack on entire NATO. Now, what we have learned is that around 20 plus 27, 28 Polish MiG-29 fighter jets will be given to US. The fighter jets will arrive at Ramstein Air Base, which is US Air Base in Germany. And from Germany, from US military base in Germany, these MiG-29 will be handed over to Ukraine. Will these MiG-29 be deployed to Ukraine or will they operate from some other place? That remains to be seen. It seems that they'll be deployed to Ukraine. We know that Zelensky has been calling for the imposition of no-fly zone or for provision of fighter jets. In two of his recent speeches, he has been urging international community to impose no-fly zone or to give Ukraine fighter jets. Now it seems that Ukraine is going to get MiG-29s of Poland. Question is, how will Russia respond to this move? If Russia says that it's an act of war, it could lead to serious repercussions. Russian attack on Poland would mean attack on NATO. Let's see, we're waiting for Russian response to this move. So far, the MiG-29 have not arrived in Ukraine. They're being sent to US military base in Germany. Pressure was being exerted from Ukraine on the US, on the EU, on the UK, that they should help Ukraine. This is the first major support from the West, from the US. If these MiG-29 are given to Ukraine. Secondly, viewers, anti-war protests in Russia continue. We know that thousands have been protesting, though protesters have been threatened with 5-year imprisonment. Despite all these threats, we have seen massive protests in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in several other cities of Russia. How many Russians have been arrested in these anti war protests? Today we got some numbers. Around 11,000 Russians have been arrested so far in the crackdown against these protesters. So, Russians want an end to this war. Most of Russians, obviously, Russia has come under pressure economically. Russia Ukraine ties are centuries old ties, and this war is leading to serious hatred between the two nations. Thirdly, a clip from Kherson, viewers. Kherson city is under Russian control. Uh, a Russian plane was shot down over Kherson. Two pilots managed to eject out of the plane, and you can see two parachutes in this video. One parachute seems to be entangled, but the other parachute seems to be working. Watch this video from Kherson, southern Ukraine. Then last news story for you. Lastly, viewers, it seems that foreign fighters will fight on both sides. We know that Ukraine is registering fighters for an international battalion of fighters. Ukraine has directed citizens in different parts of the world to register at Ukrainian embassies. International battalion is in the making. More than 3,000 from the US have registered so far. Russia is doing the same. Today we got information from Syria. Russia has military presence in Syria. Russia helped Bashar al-Assad's government when it was in danger. It has huge military presence there, and reportedly near Russian military base in Syria, registration camps have been set up. Syrian fighters are registering themselves and they'll be sent to fight in support of Russian forces. I have already shared pictures and videos of Chechen fighters who are supporting Russian forces. So from Chechnya, from Syria, fighters are arriving in Ukraine to support Russian forces. Belarus has not deployed its troops so far, but it could deploy its troops in support of Russian forces. On the other hand, Ukraine is forming this international battalion, and reportedly around 40,000 fighters have registered so far, who are on their way. Some have arrived in Ukraine. If this war goes on, we could see foreign fighters, proxy fighters, fight on both sides. Lastly, viewers, Viktor Yanukovych, who is former president of Ukraine, has written a letter to serving Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky. Viktor Yanukovych is pro-Russia, former Ukraine president. He was removed in 2014 in a coup, and the new government which replaced Yanukovych was pro-West, pro-US. That led to the start of Russia-Ukraine conflict. Viktor Yanukovych is now in Russia. He has written a letter to Zelensky. He says to Zelensky, overcome your pride, put an end to this war, negotiate with Russia. So far, Viktor Yanukovych's role is not very significant. Zelensky is very popular. His popularity has increased exponentially. But in case of Russian forces taking control of Kiev, Ukrainian capital, we could see Viktor Yanukovych back in the picture. Then he could be installed by Russians in Kiev. It could happen. So far, Zelensky is enjoying immense popularity in Ukraine. I don't think that Viktor Yanukovych is in a position uh, to command Ukrainian support in present scenario. Thank you for watching.